So a lot of people have asked me where my love of history comes from. It comes from this lady right here. Her name was Celia Rose Tullis Ainsworth. That's who my daughter's named after, was Celia Rose McGee. And she was born in 1900, September 29th, 1900, and passed away in February of 1996. She was a walking textbook of the 20th century. And whenever I'm teaching history, teaching classes, I think about the dates, about whenever something happened, like on the stock market, for example, when the stock market fell on October 29th, 1929. She was 29 years and 1 month old whenever the stock market crashed in 1929. And so I just think about that, like, the Alabama Song of the South. Someone told us Wall Street fell, but we were so poor that we couldn't tell. That was her. She knew that there a lot of people lost money. She knew that a lot of the banks failed, and she knew at that point that she didn't trust banks. And her husband was this guy right here. His name was Wiley Ainsworth, and he passed away in 1961, I believe, from a massive heart attack while milking a cow. He served in World War One, and he served in France. He enlisted in 1917. He enlisted in 1917, and he was not shipped off to Europe until 1918. I've got letters, copies of letters that he and my great grandmother, they exchanged back and forth, between his time whenever he was shipped off into different camps and training camps and stuff like that. But I would spend hours on the porch with this lady, just picking her brain about what different things that happened during the 20th century, and I just fell in love with history at that point, because I was listening to a walking textbook. All right, and so other pictures of her and her husband. These pictures right here. This is them on the farm uh, that I actually grew up on, where my mom still lives, and this is her. This is my on the. If you're looking at it on the left, this is my great grandmother, and she was much younger. And this is my great grandfather, and then another picture of them standing outside of a dairy barn that used to be on the property, but was, after several mini tornadoes, was finally destroyed. But the building behind them is still there. Um, it was a milk room slash smokehouse, and the little place they're standing, where the fence behind them, that is the cattle lot that is still on the property at my mom's house. Now the barns that are behind it, they're gone, but the property is still there. Um, that's just a little bit of about my grandmother, my grandfather. One thing that was really cool on our property is um, there's a wagon that's still there. If we had horses that could pull it, it's still operable. It stood in that barn that was torn down by tornadoes for years. And if I remember correctly, my mom told me that they would use it for parades and stuff in Mendenhall uh, way before I was born. And so that's a little bit about my grandmother. One of the cooler things here is that she was so known throughout the state that the Clarion Ledger, which is still is the state's newspaper, wrote a pretty large article about her. And this is her. This is her right here with a finger in the face of former Governor Kirk Fordyce at a political rally in a place called Pinola, Mississippi, which is right down the road from where I grew up. And then you've got this large picture, this picture of my entire family with my grandmother in the middle, and I am in the very very back. This is mid '90s, where I had a head full of hair. Um, I'm right here. If you can see me right there. Um, I'm standing right in front of a door, and I'm in the back, I guess, because I was one of the taller of all the cousins. But this is well, my dad and his siblings and all my cousins. So people ask me, what what part of history do I truly love? I would have to say that it's one of those things where people say, I love World War II, I love this, I love that, different parts of Civil War or Revolutionary War, stuff like that. But my favorite part of history is the history of veterans, the lives that veterans have lived, whether they were enlisted and whether they saw combat or not. That's one of the reasons that one of the projects that my students have to do in class is a veteran interview. They have to find a veteran and interview them, and they have to follow certain criteria, and they have to present the veteran. They have to write a thank you letter to the veteran. They have to write a biography of the veteran. Speaking of biographies, I actually wrote a biography on this man, my great grandfather, Wiley Ainsworth, after interviewing his daughter, Sadie East, and his other daughter was my dad's mother, and the stories that she told me about him were just remarkable. And I wrote a paper on him called "From the Farm to the Trenches," and that was my final paper in the World War I class with Dr. Andrew Wiest at USM, and I made an A on it, by the way. And my love of history just it transcends all understanding, in my opinion. But what area of history do I really really like? Do I really really focus on? And that's the history of veterans. Why did they enlist? What did they do? What was their job? Et cetera, stuff like that. So that's just a little bit about myself, a little bit about my family. Um, I'll have more stuff about political, historical topics and stuff like that that are overlooked. I had one comment on Facebook the other day about what should I talk about, and one of those is political historical topics that are overlooked, generally overlooked, and I've got plenty of those. And but anyway, that's today's video, and I hope y'all enjoyed that. And Ariel's right here, Celia's dog Ariel. She just can't stand to be left out of whatever's going on. She has to be a part of it. Y'all have a great day.